So I want you to imagine, just for a second, dropping like $10,000 on a 21-day international spiritual retreat.
Oh, yeah, a massive investment right out of the gate.
Exactly. And you are just fully committed to this, right?
Yeah.
You get home and you've been diligently doing these specific meditations they gave you like every single day for 3 solid years.
Right.
And, you're feeling a little calmer, maybe your blood pressure's down a bit. But eventually you go back to a follow-up seminar, you stand up in front of the guru and this whole crowd, and you ask the big burning question. You say, so when do I actually get enlightened?
Which, I mean, it is the ultimate consumer question applied to a completely non-commercial realm.
Yeah.
You are essentially asking for the delivery timeline on a product that you really believe you just paid for.
Right. And then the trendy spiritual leader, looks back at you, smiles, kind of gauges your frustration, and essentially says, don't worry, we can fast forward the process. We will get you there. Yeah. Which, to someone who is just desperate for a breakthrough, that probably sounds incredibly supportive, right?
Oh, absolutely. To a consumer, that sounds like excellent customer service. But to someone who actually understands the clinical and biological mechanics of profound meditation, offering to fast-forward enlightenment sounds like a catastrophic neurological disaster just waiting to happen.
Well, let's unpack that, because that exact scenario, a guru promising to hit the fast-forward button for a paying student, that's the real catalyst for our deep dive today.
Yeah, it's a perfect jumping-off point.
We are looking at this fascinating breakdown from the sources by Osman the Blind Yogi. And just for context, he's an advanced yoga teacher, a master bioenergy healer, and someone with 50 years of really intense, highly clinical experience in this field.
Right.
And when he heard that exchange about fast forwarding, he said major alarm bells just started ringing for him.
Yeah, because Osman points out this massive gap in how we currently understand spiritual practices here in the West. I mean, we've basically taken these ancient, highly engineered systems designed to radically alter human biology, and we've just repackaged them as, stress relief apps or weekend getaways.
And that is really our mission for today. We want to strip away all that commercial packaging of these quick fix spiritual retreats. We're going to look at the biological, the scientific, and honestly, the incredibly dangerous realities of long-term meditation.
It's so necessary to talk about this.
Because right now, the modern wellness industry is just filled with people paying for a marathon finish line photo, but they don't have any of the biological capacity to actually run the 26.2 miles.
Right. And what's genuinely fascinating is how 60 years of formal, peer-reviewed scientific studies on meditation actually back up your marathon analogy perfectly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The field has generated thousands of documented papers, many of them focusing on serious Buddhist monks, and the statistical reality of what it actually takes to reach these altered states of consciousness is just staggering.
Okay, so let's look at the baseline of that statistical reality then, because for anyone familiar with Patanjali Sutras, you probably already know the foundational requirement is Chitta-vritti Nirodha, right?
The complete cessation of mental fluctuations.
Exactly, bringing the thoughts to absolute zero. But what I find so compelling is how modern clinical neurology maps that ancient concept today.
It maps it beautifully, honestly. You were talking about bringing the brain's electrical output down to a very specific, measurable state. Scientifically, researchers are looking for the delta brainwave state.
Okay, delta.
Yeah, and in a normal waking adult, maintaining a conscious delta state is essentially a flat line of the active mind.
Wow.
Your default mode network, which is the part of the brain responsible for, your sense of self, your anxieties, your running to-do list, it completely shuts down.
So it is a literal flat line of the ego on an ECG.
Exactly.
But getting to that conscious flat line, that isn't the finish line, is it? It's really just the starting block.
Oh yeah, not even close to the finish line. Hitting that conscious delta state is merely the pre-qualification for what yogis call Samadhi, or true enlightenment.
Just a prerequisite.
Right. You have to be able to reliably hold that absolute zero state before the deeper physiological shifts can even begin to happen in the body. And to reliably hit that delta flatline, the scientific consensus shows that monks in deeply controlled monastic settings, mind you, need to be meditating for a minimum of 5 years.
Okay, hold on. Let's do the math on those 5 years, because this is where the commercial retreat promises completely fall apart for me. A monastic schedule isn't just, sitting for an hour before you commute to work.
No, not at all.
The minimum requirement in a monastic setting is 10 hours of active practice every single day.
Yep.
10 hours a day for 5 years. That is over 18,000 hours of intense, focused neurological training.
And then you contrast that 18,000 hours with what commercial retreats are asking people to do when they go home.
Right.
A typical assignment is like 7 to 20 minutes a day on an app, maybe an hour if you are doing some kind of intensive homework module.
So the math makes it highly improbable. Honestly, it feels mathematically impossible for a normal person with a day job, a mortgage, and a 20-minute daily practice to ever hit the necessary hours for Samadhi.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are barely scratching the surface of the sensory deprivation required for that state.
Yeah, so people are definitely wasting their money on false promises.
They are.
But the financial waste is actually the least concerning part of this whole equation, isn't it?
By far. The actual danger arises when someone realizes the math, they get impatient, and they try to dramatically increase their practice time at home to force the issue.
Right, trying to fast forward.
Exactly. But they are doing it entirely without monastic support.
And if the math doesn't work out, human nature dictates we just try to force it, which moves us from, a frustrating waste of money into a legitimate biological red zone. So what actually happens to the nervous system when you push those limits without a safety net?
Well, science offers a very clear, very stark warning about this. Research indicates that practicing mindfulness or deep meditation for more than 40 minutes a day without clinical or master-level guidance significantly increases your risk of psychosis.
Wait, really? More than 40 minutes a day increases the risk of psychosis?
It does.
That flies in the face of literally everything the wellness industry preaches. I mean, the entire marketing angle is that more meditation equals more peace.
I know, and it is an incredibly dangerous misconception. To understand the mechanism behind the psychosis, we really have to look at what meditation actually does. You are systematically dismantling the psychological defenses and the filters that your brain uses to navigate daily life. In a monastery, if you strip away those filters and this deluge of subconscious trauma surfaces, you have masters there. You have an entire community to intervene.
You have a safety net.
Exactly. You are held in a highly controlled clinical environment while your nervous system processes that massive flood of data.
But if you just came back from a weekend retreat, you're feeling all inspired, and you decide to meditate for 2 hours a day in your suburban living room, you are entirely alone when those filters drop.
You are totally alone with an overwhelming influx of sensory and subconscious data. And that unregulated flood is what leads people into Kundalini syndrome.
Ah, right.
Yeah, it's often referred to as the dark night of the soul. The sources actually reference some extensive research by Dr. Bonnie Green on this. She's a psychologist who specializes in these adverse awakenings.
And we are not just talking about a handful of people having a mildly bad day here.
No. Her research points to hundreds, possibly thousands of individuals experiencing severe, debilitating physiological reactions.
Because the sources describe symptoms that are, frankly, horrific. We are talking about these cracking systemic migraines that literally no modern medication can touch.
Yeah.
Deep, suffocating depression that doesn't just last a season, but stretches for 5, 10, even 20 years.
It's brutal.
And in the most extreme cases, the neurological overload leads to permanent institutionalization. Osman actually notes that this is literally an emergency room issue now. People show up at the ER, and medical professionals are increasingly having to recognize the physical symptoms of Kundalini syndrome.
Because the medical community is finally starting to realize it is a physiological crisis. You are unleashing dormant, highly potent energy in the central nervous system without having built the necessary internal infrastructure to conduct it safely.
Right.
The brain and the body simply lack the bandwidth.
It's like running a high voltage current through a standard 10-volt household wire. The wire doesn't just fail, it melts down completely. And in the human body, that biological meltdown manifests as severe psychosis. It sounds like you were trying to rewire a live electrical panel while standing in a puddle.
That electrical analogy is incredibly apt, especially when we look at Osman's personal experience with this.
Yeah.
Because, we have established the catastrophic dangers of pushing the system incorrectly, but the biological shock is just as profound when you actually do everything right and succeed.
Which is where this deep dive gets deeply fascinating. Let's look at the physical reality of involuntary samadhi. because Osman achieved this at the age of 19.
19. Think about that. And the biological mechanism of that experience was so overwhelming, it knocked him completely unconscious.
Oh.
Yeah, his nervous system simply shut off to protect itself. And it took him another 30 years, until he was 49, to develop the neurological capacity to actively control that energy.
He uses a metaphor for the sheer power of this state that really, it really puts the whole eternal spa day marketing into perspective.
Mm.
He asks us to think about a standard 220-volt wall socket, the kind of raw voltage that if you stuck your finger in it, it violently and instantly kicks your hand away.
Right, the sheer violence of that electrical shock is actually a protective mechanism so you don't die.
Exactly. And Osman says that awful, violent 220-volt jolt is, quote, cute compared to the overwhelming, crushing power of the universe hitting your nervous system during a true Samadhi experience.
Cute.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The voltage is so astronomically high that whenever he felt it coming on spontaneously in his daily life, he would intentionally distract himself, like he would turn on a television show or abruptly change his activity just to ground his brain and stop the samadhi from happening.
Because it was simply too overwhelming to manage casually.
Right.
And we also have to clarify the scale of what he's experiencing here, because according to advanced yogic science, there are 32 distinct types of samadhi.
Wait, 32 levels of this voltage?
Yes, 32. And the mildest forms, such as Satchidananda, which roughly translates to a state where every single cell in your biological structure is vibrating with total, unadulterated bliss. Which, I mean, that sounds like the ultimate goal for anyone buying a retreat ticket.
Right, it sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Osman notes that this profound blissful state is just a fraction of a percent of the true power of higher samadhi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As you move up to the highest echelons, the biological process becomes incredibly extreme. It requires the systematic shutting down of your mind, your intellect, and eventually the complete cessation of your ego.
The very neurological construct that creates your sense of I.
Exactly.
He compares it to a rocket shedding its booster stages to escape gravity and reach outer space. You literally have to burn off and jettison the psychological structures that tie your identity to this physical reality.
The mechanics of it are totally uncompromising. First, the conscious mind powers down. Then the intellect, the part of you that analyzes and categorizes things, that stops functioning. And finally, the ego itself dissolves.
So to touch that ultimate state of samadhi, the individual entity you believe yourself to be basically has to temporarily cease existing. The disconnect between the commercial packaging of enlightenment and this biological reality is just staggering. You have a student demanding a fast-forward button to a state so violently overwhelming, so fundamentally destructive to the ego, that an advanced yogi actively watches TV to avoid slipping into it.
It's wild.
People think they are buying a ticket to deep relaxation, but they are actually asking to be plugged directly into the central power grid of the universe without a transformer.
Exactly. So the logical question then becomes, if samadhi is this phenomenally powerful, what exactly is a monk doing to their body for 18,000 hours to prepare for it?
Right.
If you cannot just flip a switch without melting the wiring, how do you actually upgrade the human nervous system?
Well, this is where we have to explore the concept of the great internal cleanup. According to advanced yoga sciences, the human energy body, which is the infrastructure meant to handle all this voltage, is incredibly complex. It consists of 114 chakras. 112 of those are located inside the physical body, and 2 sit slightly above it. And connecting all of this are 72,000 nadis.
Right, the nadis.
Yeah, which serve as subtle energy pathways.
They are essentially the biological and energetic plumbing of the nervous system. And for the vast majority of human beings, this plumbing is entirely blocked.
Now, when we talk about blocked plumbing, my mind immediately jumps to modern issues, right? High cortisol from work, chronic stress, poor diet, maybe some unresolved childhood trauma. I assume that is what we are trying to clear out on these retreats.
Well, you would think so, but modern stress is just a microscopic layer on top of a much deeper blockage.
Oh.
This is where the biological reality becomes truly daunting. These 72,000 pathways are blocked by deep-seated memory. And we are talking about genetic memory, epigenetic programming, and the evolutionary survival memory of our entire species.
Osman points out that your nervous system is carrying the evolutionary baggage of up to 10 million years of survival.
10 million years.
Yeah. So when we discussed the 40-minute psychosis risk earlier, this is the material people are accidentally hitting, right? They're opening the door to 10 million years of ancestral panic.
Exactly. And the basic math of human ancestry makes this undeniable. Think about it. You have two parents. They each have two parents, giving you 4 grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
then 16 great-grandparents, 32, 64, 128. It grows exponentially with every single generation.
Go back just 7 generations and you are carrying the genetic legacy of hundreds of individuals.
Right.
And you multiply that backwards over millions of years of human evolution. Every famine they endured, every predator they fled from, every trauma that triggered a survival response, it is biologically encoded in your nervous system today.
And all of that incredibly dense, heavy evolutionary memory manifests as visceral tension and blockages in those nadis. So before the nervous system can handle the sheer voltage of Samadhi, every single one of those survival responses has to be painstakingly flushed out and cleansed. You are essentially trying to override the biological imperative to survive.
Which is arguably the hardest thing a human organism can attempt.
Easily the hardest.
So how does anyone even begin to clear 10 million years of genetic trauma? Because it certainly isn't happening in 20 minutes on a meditation app.
No, definitely not. It requires rigorous, grueling, daily physiological practice. Advanced practitioners use tools like pranayama, which is this highly specific advanced breath work, and Kriya Yoga.
And these aren't just breathing exercises to calm down, right?
No, not at all. They are designed to mechanically force vital energy through these blocked channels, slowly burning away that epigenetic residue. Osman's own teacher actually mandated a minimum of 3 hours of intense pranayama every single day for at least 10 years.
3 hours a day.
Yeah, and that was just to prepare the physical body to start the actual advanced practices.
3 hours a day for a decade, simply to clear the pipes enough to begin the real work. That is intense.
Yeah.
And the sources provide some incredible real-world examples of how excruciatingly slow this biological grind is.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's the story of the leader of the Italian Kriya Institute. He is a 70-year-old man, a senior member of a formal institute, who has been practicing these specific, intense cleansing techniques daily for 38 years.
38 years of dedicated daily practice trying to override his evolutionary programming.
And he went to India, contracted a severe physical illness, and openly admitted that he still experienced the profound, terrifying fear of death.
Wow.
Nearly 4 decades of daily neurological rewiring, and he had not fully cleared that fundamental evolutionary survival fear from his nervous system.
It's humbling, really. And you see this scale of dedication reflected in historical accounts as well. Texts like Autobiography of a Yogi describe masters who spent entire lifetimes singularly focused on altering just one specific aspect of their physiology.
Right.
Like Sri Yukteswar reportedly spent his entire life mastering the energy body, the internal electricity we've been discussing. And his teacher, Lahiri Mahasaya, went even further. He dedicated his life to mastering the light body, exhibiting biological anomalies that completely challenge our current understanding of physics, such as levitation.
And, regardless of whether a listener takes the accounts of levitation literally, the underlying point really remains the massive scale of the dedication required.
Exactly.
These are individuals who renounce the entire modern world, dedicating every waking second of their lives over decades, solely to alter their cellular biology.
And Osman himself is very transparent about this. He admits that his own ability to hit involuntary samadhi at 19 wasn't purely the result of him working incredibly hard as a teenager.
Right.
He possessed a profound biological advantage.
Because you mentioned earlier that hitting samadhi at 19 implies he was biologically predisposed to handle that voltage before he even started putting in the 18,000 hours.
He was given a massive head start. Both of his parents were highly initiated monks before they ever married or conceived him. They had already endured decades of this intense internal cleansing.
Oh, wow.
So by clearing their own genetic pathways, specifically the central nervous system channels, they passed down an epigenetic slate that was already primed to conduct high voltage.
So his starting line was essentially at the 20-mile mark of the marathon, while the rest of us are still trying to find our running shoes.
Pretty much. The genetic and epigenetic foundation he inherited was just vastly different from the average person attending a commercial retreat.
Which brings the ultimate reality check straight back to you, the listener. You simply cannot buy a 3-week, $10,000 retreat and expect to magically clear 10 million years of evolutionary biology. The timeline just does not compute.
It is biologically and scientifically impossible. And frankly, given what we have uncovered about the 40-minute threshold and the severe physiological crisis of Kundalini syndrome, it is incredibly fortunate that these commercial retreats failed to deliver on their promises.
Seriously. If a guru actually possessed a fast-forward button and hit an unprepared student with that 220-volt samadhi shock, we wouldn't be talking about a disappointed consumer.
No.
We would be looking at a massive public health crisis of melted nervous systems.
So what does this actually mean for someone who genuinely wants to explore meditation? Because the core takeaway here is the radical management of expectations.
Right.
Meditation, mindfulness, breath work, they're incredibly powerful tools for regulating the nervous system, improving focus, lowering blood pressure, but true, profound spiritual enlightenment, reaching Samadhi, that requires immense, lifelong physical and neurological preparation.
It is the ultimate undertaking of a human life. It is not a weekend hobby to offset a stressful work week.
Exactly. Osman's advice to the modern practitioner is deeply pragmatic. He says, take care of your physical body first, secure your mental health, manage your career, your family, and your worldly responsibilities.
Yeah.
Do not chase an explosive, world-shattering spiritual state that your biology is fundamentally unequipped to survive yet.
It really puts the entire wellness industry into a stark new perspective. We deeply desire the ultimate prize of inner peace, but we want it delivered like a convenient package on our doorstep.
We want the marathon finish line photo, but we absolutely refuse to train for the race.
We don't want to run the miles, and we certainly don't want to clear 10 million years of ancestral baggage, so I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today.
Let's hear it.
We started by examining that frustrated student, right? Desperate for a fast-forward button to enlightenment, trying to buy an escape from the friction of his daily life. But if our nervous systems are literally holding on to millions of years of evolutionary survival memory, maybe the true danger isn't that commercial meditation retreats do too little.
Right.
Maybe the real danger is that we are casually turning the dials on an ancient, immensely powerful biological machine that we barely understand, all because we want a quick escape from modern stress.
It really forces you to wonder what else we are inadvertently tampering with when we just close our eyes, cross our legs, and try to force the universe to bend to our schedule.
Be incredibly careful with the wiring. That is our deep dive for today. We will catch you on the next one.